Alrighty. That's down. All right. Let's see. Just doing a quick check here. Make sure we can hear everything. We can see everything. Okay. All right. One sec here.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, I hope everybody's staying safe, getting through these times. Today, week 13. So we are on to reverb and delay. Time-based effects, so that involves chorus, flanger, phaser, anything that has to do with manipulating time and space in the mix. So reverb and delay are part of this as well. So yeah, let's just kind of start taking a look and diving in. So I did print that reverb and delay from last time. However, decided to not use it. So I got rid of it for now. We're gonna build our own reverb and delay. We might play with some room stuff as well. So we will see as we go along. So for starters, let's just get a rundown of the song again, get it in our heads, and then we'll move on. So here we go.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. A hunting accident story Sherry told. Said it was around a double-out buck. Everybody knew Johnny didn't hunt. How Jimmy Wayne's shop burned down to the ground. It was 35 miles just south of Mactown. Was a senator, he made headlines when the sheriff called the feds and hung him out to dry. Sheriff died in a wreck when his brakes went out on his way home from his mother's house. It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. You cross them or give them any shit, you get a little Dixie Mafia hit. Died, he got shot at the gate. Prison guard said he was trying to escape. Daddy said he hated that it happened that way. If he'd have kept his mouth shut, he might be here today. Another little Dixie Mafia hits. There's a mob out here in the sticks. Don't cross them or give them any shits, or you get a little Dixie Mafia hit. It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. State senators don't mean shit, not to a little Dixie Mafia hit. Granddaddy moved here, he was running from the law. Daddy killed a man in a barroom brawl. If you see him coming at you, you better step aside. The same goes for me, 'cause I'm the next in line to call a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. You cross them, won't give them any shit. You get a little Dixie Mafia hit. It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. You cross them, won't give them any shit. You get a little Dixie Mafia hit.
Alrighty, so there was the entire song. It's everything we kind of did last time. So just kind of getting it in our heads again. We're trying to remember where we were at. So again, so we're going to start talking about time-based effects. So reverb, delay, chorus, phaser, flanger, etc. All these things are basically manipulating time, manipulating the signal, and adjusting the time to get a specific sound. So let's just dive right in to the start here, and let's talk about some different verbs. So first thing I'm going to do is build us some sends. So Shift Command N, we're going to do stereo sends, and they're going to be auxes, not audio tracks. The difference, audio tracks you can record to, aux tracks are buses. So basically we're just going to be sending information in and out of them. That's it. So let's do, see, 1, 2, let's start with 6. We'll see if we have enough here. Okay. Now something I'm going to do with these is what we call solo safe. What solo safe allows is when we solo something up, those tracks that we've saved will still feed through. So they won't mute out at all. So I'm just going to make sure these are all solo safe. The reason I do this is to make sure we can hear the reverb or effects or delays or whatever. So make sure we're going to the right place so you guys can hear it as well. All right, so with these, typically you don't record them off your interface. This is internal busing within your DAW. So they're typically under like a bus menu of some kind. So as you can see, we kind of have some pre-labeled here. So we've got hall, a plate, a room, ambience, and then a few different delays here. So it looks like we have 7. So I'm gonna make one more, just so we can kind of go through them all here. Okay, so we have 7 of them here. Let me grab these all, and let's get them routed. Okay. So let's pull up the first one here. So I'm going to go into here, we'll grab the stock setting, which deverb. Okay. So deverb is our stock that we have. So here we've got different settings, hall, church, plate, different rooms, ambience, and a nonlinear. So these are all different algorithms basically based on different areas, based on a hall or a plate or a room, etc., etc. So let's take a look. So again, this one's set on hall, so we'll leave it there. And let me crank this up. Then let's grab a plate here as our next one. Let's see what's after that. We have a room after that, so let's grab a room sound. An ambient. So we'll grab one of those. And then from there we get into delay, so let me grab a quick delay here. And let's see, what am I looking for? Let's go with mod delay. These are linked. These are quarter note delays. So we will sync our quarter notes to the song. We'll do the next one. This one will be eighth notes to the song. And our last is a tape slap. So the tape slap, I'm going to use something that's already built in here. There it is. This one? Yep, tape echo. Perfect. And okay, let's see, sync. Like a dotted eighth for fun. Okay. So I'm going to use the acoustic guitar as our sample, as our audio example here. So first thing I'm going to do is go to my outputs, buses, and then here we've got each one. So you can see we've got the hall here. I'm going to solo. All right, so, oh, that's not solo safe either. Aha. Okay, so we've got the acoustic soloed here, so we'll just kind of grab a little piece of it.
Miguel's got a question. It's hard for me to translate.
All right, so let's see.
Like Lily had one about Ableton and he had one about what you were starting to do.
Sorry guys, just kind of reading comments here. Where can we go on Ableton to do this? So Ableton is a little different, but basically you would be adding, I think they're called aux tracks, if I remember correctly. So typically, like you have the choice of an audio track, a MIDI track, and there should be an aux track in Ableton. You'd have to like that add a new track and make it. These are considered tracks. You just have to, like that. An audio track here has the ability to record. The aux track doesn't have the buttons at all where my cursor is. So there's no ability to record in and out or anything like that. You're just passing audio through. And
I think Miguel's pertained to when you started labeling each individual, assigning buses to individual tracks. Like what you were doing there exactly.
So with the, I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Miguel, but if you're talking about like in here, this is internal busing. You have to create this in your system setup, in your I/O. So it's I/O stands for in and outs. You have to literally make this. Most of the time, Pro Tools comes pre-set up with like bus 1 and 2, bus 3 and 4. That's exactly what these are. I just went through and named them to exactly what I wanted them to be. So they're routed via a bus. I just named that bus within the DAW to what it needs to be. All right, so on here we have the ability to send. Ableton has this ability too. There should be like a sends section on each channel of audio that you're trying to send out to. And it looks a little different, but does basically the same thing. So here, this is where we can set our sends to where we want them to go. So for right now on this acoustic guitar, I have it set for the going to the hall. So what's going to happen, this is internal routing. So this send is now being rerouted all the way over here to this bus where it will be fed through this reverb plugin, and then it's going to come out to our submaster, which is then our main two bus, what we're actually hearing. So it's what I'm hearing and it's what you guys are hearing. So this is all done internally. So it's not going out into any outboard gear or anything that we have. This is all built in what you can do. This is basically a virtual representation of what we do in here with the patch bay and outboard gear and etc. You're just doing it in your computer. So if I'll start with this little fader down. If I hit play, we'll hear the acoustic guitar as it is, and then as I bring this in, we'll actually start to hear the hall reverb come in. So here we go. All right, so that was a hall. Let me make a quick adjustment here. Just grab this. Okay. And let's switch to the next one. I'm just going to go through these real quick and then we'll talk about them. So that was a hall. Here's a plate. Okay. That was a plate sound. Let's go to the next one, which will be a room. Okay, and let's go to the ambience, which I'm going to make a quick look at this. I'm going to bump this to large. Okay, so here's an ambience. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of hear the difference between all of those. These are all modeled on different representations of space, of what we hear naturally. So the idea behind a hall, like the setup that I have right here, it's a large hall, is it's like being in like an amphitheater or a hall or any kind of acoustic space that was kind of designed for music, typically, like a music hall. That's the idea. There's also, as you can see, there's church in here. Hall and church are very similar. A lot of times churches here will have a pre-delay, and we'll talk about that in a second, compared to a hall, which typically doesn't. The next one that we listened to was a plate. So plates were actual metal plates that they connected, in and out. So they would run audio signal through a plate, and it would reverberate, and then they would capture that. That's, I think, the old Abbey Road EMT plates. They were literally metal plates. You can get them in all different kinds. Let's see. The sound of the music is changing back. Right. So Lily, we're not changing the tempo of anything. Everything's staying the same. The idea that it's a time-based effect is it's manipulating the time of the audio signal. We're making a copy and we're manipulating that. We haven't done delays yet. I'll get to delays when we're actually starting to delay things out. So yeah, Miguel, it should be under reverb. Just it's the stock deverb. Comes with every set of Pro Tools. At least it should. All right, so yeah, with plates, metal plates, they were literally attached. They would run audio through them. So they had different kinds of plates. They had different metals that they used to build the plates. So that's kind of what this is based off of. They have a very specific sound. They're not as natural that we would hear like going into a room. They have a kind of almost a metallic and like tingy sound to them sometimes, depending on if it's a bright plate or a dark plate. You can make all those adjustments usually. So the next one we heard was a room. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like a room. Walk into your garage, walk into your bathroom. They have a sound. Walk into your living room, your kitchen, clap your hands in all these different areas. They're going to sound a very specific way. And this is a typical natural sound that we're used to, which is why sometimes we like to record in like a more dead space, because we can add this type of sound after the fact, or vice versa. We like to record in a room if we really like the sound of that space, of that room, then we'll use that to our advantage. The next one was the ambient, or the ambience. Ambience is kind of a funky thing. It kind of does its own thing, but the idea behind it is it's typically a smaller space, and has kind of like a real short slap to it. Now again, we're talking just about reverbs right now. So with reverbs are a bunch of delays put together. I know it sounds kind of weird, but we'll get to it when we look at delays here. So the delays, if we look at delays, I'll pull up the next one. So we'll start with a quarter note delay. So this should hopefully be within time. So as I bring this in, you'll start to hear the delay repeat itself. So what happens is audio comes in, and then the delay will take the audio, it will duplicate it, and it will then play it back at whatever time we have set. So on the first delay we are looking at, I have it synced. Actually, this won't be in time, but synced to a quarter note, which is telling us it's 500 milliseconds. So when audio starts, 500 milliseconds later, it's going to play a duplicate of it. Now, the original sound is going to keep playing, and the delay is going to be added on top of this and continue to delay out. So let's see what that does. Okay, so you could hear itself repeating like dum da dum da dum. It's like dun da ga dun da ga dun. It's just that whole thing where it's in a rhythm. So again, these are digital delays. Specifically, digital delays take the sound and they replicate it perfectly every time. Old school analog delays, or when we look at the tape echo, they started to degrade because what was happening is every time it would duplicate, it would start to like dull out, and it would basically start to degrade the sound and kind of sound like it was getting further away. So digital delays are typically just the exact representation, like reproduction of the sound, however many times we do it, and then an analog delay. So let me go in and we'll switch this to the tape slap, and we'll look at the tape echo here. Here's a tape slap, or a tape echo sound. So you can hear it keeping going and going and going and going and going. And as it kept going, it was sort of just kind of getting smaller and smaller and going away and fading away, and the audio started changing. That's typical of analog. Analog sounds have a very specific thing that they do, where they basically, the audio degrades down and disappears into nothing. Especially like that when you have the feedback way up. Okay, so let's jump back into the reverb and let's talk about the different settings here. So let me change this back to a hall. Okay. So On this one specifically, it has a few different settings. Every delay and reverb is different, depending on the plugin manufacturer, etc. They have the basics idea, the basic skill, or the basic like parameters and stuff on them. So your gain, so how much you're going into it. Something with analog. If you drive the gain into an analog plug-in or an analog piece of gear, it can saturate because it typically had a preamp in it. It would saturate that and get distorted or something like that, or kind of like grainy. So you have that ability with digital delay. Doesn't really do that. Of course, you have your settings up here of the different types of reverb. You have size settings here. So as you can see on the decay right here with the number, as I change this, it changes the time. So small, medium, large. You can also just manually grab this and do whatever you want with it. Then you have pre-delay. So pre-delay determines when the reverb actually kicks in. So for example, if the audio were to play and we had, let me max this out, let's see what it goes to, 300 millisecond pre-delay on it, which is the max this can do, the reverb wouldn't start for 300 milliseconds. So it would wait all of that time before the reverb would play. This is what it would sound like. Sounds like a delay. Because again, we are delaying that signal out. It's as if the audio is playing, it's going out, then it finally hits the room or hits the walls or whatever, and then it comes back to us as reverb. So this is really cool because we can, in essence, either make it sound as if we're completely enveloped in the space, or that we're in a specific spot, and that it takes a minute for that reverb to kind of come back around. So if we drop this to, like, let's say around 40 milliseconds, let's see what this sounds like. Now let me bring this down a little bit too. Okay. So the reverb is there, but you can hear the slap where it's kicking back at us. So it's hitting a wall basically, and it's bouncing back. I'd say the best the best example of this would be to go to like an elementary school or any kind of school that has like big brick walls and stuff like that up or anything, and you clap your hands and you can hear it like bounce off the walls. That's kind of what pre-delay is doing here. It's giving us that kind of a slap back and forth, which can be really good if I crank this up here. It just gives us a little bit of space. So it allows the actual audio to come through first, and then the reverb kind of takes over. So it has this ability to, like, if instead of we could boost this up, instead of burying the audio in this, like that, if I have it cranked here and I have no pre-delay, it's just kind of buried in that reverb. And if we start to move this pre-delay up, now it sounds funky because we have so much of it going on, but when it's blended in, again, it allows whatever source, your original source, to breathe a little bit. So that sound is able to develop first, and then the reverb kicks in. This is really, really important with vocals, because if you have no pre-delay whatsoever on a vocal, sometimes the vocals can get buried in the reverb itself. So using a pre-delay, and you have to play with it, but using that pre-delay to allow consonants and things to come out before the reverb actually starts to kick in will allow the vocal to be still present and heard, but seem like it's in the space. All right, so of course the decay knob, this just adjusts the time, so how long the reverb actually decays out. So if I go, I'll start really short with it, and then I'll start to crank it up, and we'll see how big it gets. So again, you probably would never really use the infinite. I mean, maybe as a cool effect, but it wouldn't be something I would ever go like that's so massive. I mean, unless you're making ambient music, which could be really cool. But like that. So typically like somewhere in the middle there. So that's literally how long, like when sound hits it, and then that tail, how long it takes for it to trail off. Okay, so from there we've got a high cut here. So high frequency cut. This is cutting out the high frequencies. So let's set this for somewhere like right in here. And I'll adjust this so we can listen to the reverb. Like that, you can hear the high end disappear out of the reverb. So again, this is basically just an EQ setting on the reverb. Now this is after the reverb. So you're affecting the reverberation sound. You're EQing it specifically. You're not EQing what's going into it. So sometimes I will actually put an EQ before a reverb or before delay and EQ the sound sources that are going into it, because the reverb or delay itself is going to create its own equalization that then you can adjust on the plugin itself and adjust those values as well. So high cut there, low pass filter. So this is basically the kind of the same idea here, how much low end you're letting come through. This one specifically is actually before the reverb on this plugin. Certain plugins may have it before or after. And then you've got your diffusion mount. So let's mess with the diffusion for fun here. I'm gonna crank this up a little bit more. So here, see it's set at 87, let's play with this. So the idea behind the diffusion is how it's scattering, how it's spreading out. It's a little difficult to hear in this, it does make a small adjustment. Not all reverb plugins have this. So it's just one of those things, again, yours may have it, yours may not. How can you tell if it's before or after? You can try to mess with it. So like if we mess with this low pass filter real quick, let's see here. I'll leave it where it's at. So I'll mess with the low pass and we'll check it out here compared to the high cut. So remember the high cut was taking a lot of that top end out of the reverb. So let's adjust the low pass filter and see what it does. So if you listened real carefully, the reverb still has like that presency top end to it, that kind of shimmery sparkle, until I took it out with the high cut, the high frequency cut. So again, like this is affecting that. So sometimes it's labeled. Sometimes you just have to read the manual on the plugin. It just depends. But like that, because we have a high frequency cut, we know like that it's actually affecting the reverb. Whereas like that, if I leave that where it's at and say we cut out, 7 here, and I'll take it in and out. So I'll go from like around this area and I'll put it all back in. Listen to see if the reverb changes. In fact, what I'll do here, we'll listen to just the reverb. Okay, so here's just the reverb, not the actual direct sound from the acoustic. So again, listening to that, when I have the low pass filter and it's starting to filter the guitar sound coming in, right? Whereas the high frequency cut, what it's doing is it's actually cutting all the high frequencies of the reverb itself. So you could actually sit there and adjust and filter out frequencies you don't want going into that reverb. Because maybe like that you want the guitar to be more dull or the vocal to be more dull going in because it's a real bright shimmery reverb, so you know it's going to add that anyway. So you have some tonal control. Now again, some other plugins have even more. We have certain reverbs that have, you know, bass, middle, and treble. It has everything in there. So okay, and then of course down here you have a mix control. So you've got a dry and a wet. So let me put this back into normal mode. Okay, let's unmute this. So what this was going to do is it's either going to blend between the two. All right, so now the way we're using this reverb specifically, we're doing it on a bus. So we would really never touch the deverb's mix setting. We would leave it at 100% because we're duplicating our signal, right? We have the original acoustic. It's coming out to our sub master. That's how we're hearing it. Then we're sending a copy of it to the reverb, and then the reverb is being sent to the bus again. So we're basically blending between the two of them. If we were to take this and put this directly on, well, I can't on this one, but if we were to put it directly on the track, so let me grab, go to reverb, find deverb. Okay, so if I put it directly on the track now when I hit play, we have 100% wet because that's what it's set to. So we're gonna get 0 of our direct signal and all reverb. So the question is, why would you do one or the other? It depends on what you're trying to do. It does have the mix knob there for a reason, so you can actually put this directly onto a track and blend the verb in right then and there if you want. A lot of times I like using buses for a few different reasons. Number one, you can use that same exact reverb for multiple things. So unless you're going for a very specific sound on something, like this one reverb is for this one thing, and that's exactly, and that's, you know, that's all it's gonna do, I would usually set it up where we're busing things. That way I can send multiple things. Like if I want to send all the guitars to this one reverb, I don't have to put that reverb on every single track. So this also saves computing power on your processor and on your computer. So if your computer can't handle having 10 reverbs across just the guitars, you could just do one reverb on a bus and send all of your guitars to that, and now it's just processing with one reverb. All right, so let's get rid of this and let's dive into delays real quick. So let me adjust this to a delay. Let's look at the mod delay here. Okay. So this delay is, I might grab a different delay so we can look at it too, but this is just kind of a basic delay. So this one happens to be, of course, in stereo. We have, again, our timing here. So this adjusts to how long it will take before we hear, you know, the repeated signal again. And of course we can unlink it so we could make the two sides completely different from each other. Feedback, of course, how many times it's going to keep repeating itself over and over and over. And then it looks like we have a low pass filter, which, without listening to it, it could either affect the dry signal coming in or it could affect the whole delay, not sure. Now the reason this one is called a mod delay is it also has modulation on it. So what I'm going to do, let's set this to 0 for a second, and we'll send an equal amount. Okay, I'm going to take this to, I'm going to take it to 100%. Let's see what happens. All right, so what is that doing? It's modulating. So what it's doing is at the rate that we're adjusting that fader up and down of the rate, it's taking that signal and it's either speeding up or slowing down. So if you think if we got the audio signal just going normally, it's taking that and it's either like squishing or compressing, like making it go faster, 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 or slower, slower, slower. This is, again, like kind of where it's set right now. It kind of sounds like a chorus, right? It's that whole idea where we have the normal signal going and then we have this delayed signal that's just off, that's modulating and being just a little bit different back and forth to give us kind of this wishy-washy, wishy-wishy sound. So I'll play it again. Just like that. This is basically phasing, or what we're doing. We're affecting the phase of things because, again, we're taking a duplicated signal and we're blending them together, and one is out of time with the other one. So now all of a sudden we're getting like this weird back and forth phasing, and you're literally hearing the audio, the two pieces of audio going back and forth in time, and that's what gives you that sound as they're going back and forth against each other, and then like that, depending on how fast it's modulating, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, that gives you this sound. So that's why it's called a mod delay. Now, if we were just to pull up a modulation plugin like a phaser, a flanger, or a chorus, that's what they do. They modulate. They do that type of stuff. That's what they're made for. The delay, again, is meant to delay things. So let's set this for, let's try like 300 milliseconds. All right, so I've taken the modulation out. So let's listen to just the delay side. It's kind of messy, but what I'll do is I'll adjust the feedback and we'll get it going, and we'll see what happens here. So again, it stopped playing, there's no audio, it's just repeating over and over. It's like that. If I go to 100%, it's just going to repeat that over and over and over and over and over. It will never stop because it's infinitely repeating. And it'll just keep going. And again, this is why it's a digital delay, because digital delay, if you listen to it, it's not changing the sound of what it's repeating. I'll boost it up. It's literally like, it's like your tape is skipping or the record is, it's just over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So again, like when we messed, oh yeah, we can do that too. I forgot you can do negative feedback with this. It's feedback, it's doing feedback, but it's going backwards. I'll flip it back to the normal. Anyway, we can mess with sound all day. Fun stuff. But so feedback, again, how many times it's repeating over and over and over and over. Again, with an analog plugin, that feedback is slowly going to degrade down. A perfect example of that is this guy right here. So this is the carbon copy delay from MXR. Most guitar pedals that are analog style have what we call a bucket brigade delay chip in them. It's a chip that slowly degrades the sound as it comes in, and you can get some really cool effects. Like if you ever hear like these crazy like all these weird sounds and stuff that come out of delay pedals, that's what this kind of does. It's that kind of a pedal. And that's an analog thing. It's just what it sounds like, what it does. Analog is that cool thing. Digital, again, just consistently repeats unless you change it, unless you put like an EQ or something, or it has the ability to do that. All right, so let's look at, let me get rid of the tape echo. Let's just look at some modulation real quick. just to kind of go over it. So let me grab, what do I want to grab? Yeah, let's grab this. And let's take a look. Okay, so this is based on a guitar pedal as well, but this we've got chorus and vibrato. So while chorus adjusts the time back and forth of the audio signal, where it's like, we have a normal audio signal and the other one's being modulated back and forth in time to give us that kind of like wishy-washy sound. Vibrato is actually affecting the amplitude, so how like loud and quiet it is. This is also kind of like a tremolo effect, I think is what they typically call it on guitar amps, but it's actually a vibrato. So let's see what that sounds like. So again, that was the chorus side of it. So it sounded very much like the modulation that was built into that delay. So let's look at the vibrato side now. So it's kind of a blend where it's doing some modulation, but it's also affecting up and down. You don't really hear the up and down side of it as you would like a full-on tremolo, but what this is actually doing is it's affecting speed back and forth and up and down, and it does it in a very specific way because certain types of choruses and vibratos multiply their signal. So they either have, they duplicate it once, maybe twice, 3 times, 5 times. Some plugins and some guitar pedals allow you to do this multiple times, and you can like adjust what you're looking at. So let's jump to another one. Let's jump to, actually, let me see if I have one in here. Do I have flanger? All right, let's see what this guy does. Crazy, right? So this one happens to have a feedback feature. So what's actually doing is it's taking the modulated sound and it's feeding back into itself and creating like those crazy whack, 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 whack kind of things. And of course you can adjust the rate and the depth typically adjusts, how much of it you have. It's kind of like a mix knob basically, or a blend knob. And then of course your pre-delay. So flangers, yeah, these are all kind of fun things you can mess with. The last one would be a phaser. Let me find the orange phaser. All right, here's phaser. All right, so that one again, it's modulating in time, but you can hear that. I think the person that made this most famous probably Eddie Van Halen. I think that kind of sound and stuff like that. It was usually set kind of lower, but it just kind of gives like that thing going on. How can you give the song an underwater slowdown effect? Does this have anything to do with delay? Yeah, I mean, absolutely has to do with delay. And modulation, just in general. In fact, let me grab, which one is it? Hold on. That's under AIR, which is, why am I missing it? There, right there, AIR, and I think it's their, is it their multi-chorus. Let's see here. There's actually one of these has like an underwater setting, and I don't remember which one it is. Is it the? I don't think it's the filter, is it? Bubble echo. What's a bubble echo sound like? Nope, definitely not that one. Okay. But yeah, I don't remember exactly which one you can do it with. It might be, is it flanger? It's funny because I remember finding it in one of these and be like, oh, look, underwater sound. So that's a funny question that you would happen to ask that.
Air that's an LO system, right?
No, these are stock.
Air is stock?
Yep, these are stock plugins as well. This is AIR. Comes with the bubble. See, I know there's the bubbles one. Maybe it was that one. Let's see. It's not quite underwatery, but you know that you kind of get the idea. It just takes a lot of messing with on the rate and depth and feedback and stuff. So you just have to kind of mess with the modulation settings on things like this to kind of get that sound. But that whole idea where you're affecting like this sweeping kind of sound that's going on like that, if we were to like drop the rate way down. Doing it manually, yeah, I mean, not necessarily a plugin, but like a pedal. You know, pedals do this kind of stuff, guitar pedals and stuff. You could plug in and do these kinds of things. Or, I mean, most digital mixing boards have all this kind of stuff or things that are similar built on to this. The only way, I guess, to do it without a plugin on a computer would be to literally duplicate and manually time adjust things, which would get crazy. It's kind of what they're doing. Okay, why is I'm always there? Can you show vacuum? Why is it always there on effects? The only thing I know that's called vacuum would be this guy, which this is a synthesizer. So this is something you would, you know, it synthesizes sounds. Yes, like, so yeah, turning the rate down would definitely get you that kind of sound. Just mess with the rate and the depth a lot. Again, the depth is how much of it there is, and the rate is how fast or slow it happens in time. Yeah, Miguel, this is the only thing I know. It's called vacuum, which this is an actual synthesizer. So, yeah, probably scared the crap out of you right there. But that's the idea, is that this is a synth. So not necessarily, you don't put audio through this. This actually makes audio. Okay, so let me grab the tape echo back in here. All right, so now we've kind of covered everything. Let's just start diving in because we need to start kind of getting some things rolling here. So, okay. So let's look at our drums first. So I'm gonna solo these up and let's take a listen to our drums real quick. Give me a position. All right, here we go. Okay, so let me take our room mics out real quick and we'll listen to just the overheads, the worst mic, the snare in its sample, and the kick in its sample. Okay. So without the room mics, we definitely need some space. If you don't have a room and you need to build a room, there's a real quick and easy thing we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all of these guys, and we're going to send these to our room bus. Now they're all going to the room, which is over here. And I'm going to bring this down. All right. All I'm going to do, again, we just have this set on a room sound. It's medium, room 2, didn't do anything fancy. This is just like kind of what comes stock built into it. I'm just going to raise it up and see if we can get that sound that's like having a drum room. Ta-da! Drum room out of nothing. So again, this is great because like that, we automatically just made it sound somewhat natural, like it was in a room, in a space. You could record drums in a completely dead, bedroom, and you just put it into a room and voila, room. Now we have a room, so I'm not gonna mess with doing that specifically, but let me pull these off. Cool. Okay. Because we do have a room, I am going to mess with the snare a little bit though. So this is where we get to have a little bit of fun. So let's listen to just the snare. And of course we hear all the other drums in there. Let's listen to the snare sample. Snare sample sounds great, right? There's no bleed from anything else. It's the whole point of the sample. So the other reason that we use a sample, other than just it sounding good and we can blend it with our natural snare, we can use this to drive a reverb. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to send this to our plate. So now, instead of having all that bleed from the normal snare drum, I've got this beautiful clean send from this snare sample going to our reverb, triggering that and making our other snare sound great. So let's get that blended in with all of the drums here. All right, here we go. Okay, so man, that sounds great. Now what happens here if I put this in pre-fader? Basically what happens is anything I do with the fader isn't going to affect this send. I'm going to mute our snare sample, and now I'm going to blend this in. So again, we're not going to hear the snare sample drop, like the direct sound. It's only feeding the reverb, and I'm going to blend that reverb in with our drum sound. Here we go. So we basically, without actually using the snare sample itself, the direct sound, we made our other snare sound really good by just letting the sample drive the reverb. So again, we weren't hearing the direct sound from the snare sample. It was only going to the reverb, and then we blend that reverb in with all of our other drums to get this nice, beautiful sound. And like that, we're not having to fight against all of that extra bleed in our snare drum microphone that we use to record. All right, so that's something we can do. Now, granted, I do want to use that, so I'm going to leave it where it's at. Okay, and let's see how that sounds. It sounds great. It's nice, fat, big crack to it. Okay, so that's just our snare drum. Would we use reverb on a kick, let's say? So let's copy it over and take a listen. All right, so I just copied settings over to the sample again. Let's see what that sounds like. So now we've got reverb on the kick and reverb on the snare. Kind of up to you if you want to have it in there. It definitely sounds like it's more in like a really big room, or say like an empty warehouse or something like that. It has that kind of sound that you would typically hear. Now, real quick, I'm going to put these into pre, at least that one into pre. I'm going to mute our drums. So we're only going to hear the kick drum here, the sample kick drum driving that plate verb. So there's kind of a lot of muddy low end, and that's going to affect our kick drum. So this is where I would typically put an EQ before it. So if we just grab a stock EQ, so the 7-band here, and I'm just going to roll the low end out. So all I'm doing is I'm making sure that low end from the kick drum isn't going into the reverb. That's it. We're not affecting the direct sound of the kick right now. Sounds kind of weird because it's all just top end and there's no low end there. But if we were to blend that back in, there's so much big booming, just bleh sound in there when that low end is going to the reverb. So typically I don't put a lot or any reverb onto a kick drum. It depends on the song. It depends on what we're doing. For this one, I probably won't. But if you're going to do it, definitely look at EQing before you go in, because it can definitely affect like that, especially on the low end. When you have low end going into reverb, it just muddies everything up down there. So all that work you did cleaning up the low end and making it kind of tight and punchy is just going to go out the window, because now you've put reverberation on it and it's just like blowing out basically. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of that, and we're gonna get rid of that. So honestly, in the drums, that's all I'm really gonna worry about, is just putting some on the snare. So same idea with the bass. Probably won't put, well, actually with the bass, let's take a listen real quick. So let's send this to the room for funds. Why not? I mean, it definitely sounds like it's in a room, as if it was someone who's playing bass on the other side of the room, and you just happen to be standing in the room. You're like, oh, look, someone's playing bass. There it is. So you could use it if you wanted to. Now you don't have to use that much, but this is kind of an example idea. All right, acoustic guitar. Now we have all these different sounds here for different reasons, right? We have a hall, we have a plate, we have a room, we have an ambience. So these are all set up for different things. Plates, because of the nice shimmer top end on it, sometimes I will use it like that for snare drums. Sometimes acoustics. Let's see what happens if we throw the acoustic to here. Maybe we'll use the hall. Sometimes it depends on the instrument. So let's see what happens. All right, see what it sounds like with a hall instead. Hall actually kind of sounds more natural. It sounds like it's in a space, so maybe we'll stick with the hall for now. All right, let's look at guitars real quick. So these are the electric guitars. Let's have some fun here. again, really dry. This is what we recorded, right? We put microphones right up onto the cabinet and recorded these. So, but that's not typically how we hear a guitar. We don't put our ear down next to the cabinet. We hear it in a space. So let's put it in a space. Something that can be really fun to do. I do this a lot. You can do it however you want to, but I like to send it to the opposite side to the reverb. So if I, like this, for example, we have these panned 40% to the left. Instead of just throwing this into a room, like I'll just do it here right now, we'll throw this in, we'll probably bring this down a little bit, and we'll just duplicate this to the other track. So instead of doing this, it sounds good, but if I pan this to the complete opposite side now, and now do it, and actually because this is a stereo, it's not going to do exactly what I want, so I'm going to do the mono send version of it. Okay. And hold on. Fun things to change in here. Deverb. For those in Pro Tools, Miguel specifically, right here, if you ever go in to get a plugin and you're on a stereo channel, you'll have multi-channel plugin, which means it's stereo. It's sending to both channels. We have multi-mono, which means it has 2 different plugins. So if I go to a multi-mono version of this reverb and pull up Deverb here, you can see now I have a left and a right and a link button. If I unlink these, I can set one side different than the other. So instead of using 2 different plugins, I can use one plugin, set 2 sides completely differently, and have it all there. So now, if I hit play, you can see the reverb's only coming out of the right channel there, which is great, because now, instead of this encompassing sound, we have the dry track on the left side that's got the presence and everything, and there's no reverb like surrounding it. It's all in the other speaker coming at us. So it's kind of the same idea as using a pre-delay, where we need the presence and we need that guitar to kind of poke out and sit there. We don't want the reverb to envelop it, but we want it there as a spatial element. So now, it sounds like we're hearing the guitar here and we're hearing it hit almost like a wall or something off this side and coming back at us. And it kind of gives that idea of where it's placed in the room. Like in our entire space, it's like now all of a sudden, oh, the guitar is the guitar is here because I can hear it echoing off of this wall and coming back at me. So we hear that instead of just like all around, we're now placed it in a specific space, so we know exactly where it is in our spectrum here. So we could do the same thing with the pedal steel, except we're going to send it to the other side. Again, the pedal steel is panned to the right, so let's send it to the left side. And we'll bring this down. All right, so let's see what these two sound like together. Again, they have reverb on their amps, right? So we have some essence of a space, but now we really kind of know where they're at. So let's listen to the pedal steel by itself. So there. Now you can kind of hear where it's at. All right. So let's see. Next thing, let's look at this guitar solo real quick. So let's go grab it. I'm gonna grab this little piece right here. Okay. Now, granted, he had a lot of effects. He had pedals with delays, etc., etc. But let's listen to it by itself. soon as I hit stop, it stops. So let's fix that. So again, we can use the room for this. For this one, though, I think what I'm going to do is actually use the room in its entirety because of what it is, being a solo. I kind of want it to kind of encompass the whole space. And then let's mess with the delay. I'm going to send this to the tape for fun. All right, so we'll get to the tape in a second, but let's listen to it in the room first. There, it's a room. Now again, because the way we're sending it, it definitely sounds like it's still kind of monoed right there, but let's add this tape slap in now. And this is not really synced to the song, but let's see what happens. So you can kind of hear it there. Now again, this is on follow main pan, so what this is happening is it's actually being sent in the same position as we've panned the track. But what happens if we pan it opposite again? Same idea, right? We're just going to do it with a delay. Really didn't make a difference because again, we're sending to both sides. So if we then send to one side, I don't know if this one can go mono actually. Now that I think about it, it can.
There we go.
Delay. Come on. Delay. Tape echo. Okay. So again, here's the mono version. So again, we're going to send to one side of it. So again, we're just kind of adding this space to kind of make it kind of envelop the whole area as if we're getting like a slap off it. Now, the other way to do this, of course, is just to create a mono send. So we've been doing everything in stereo so far with our sends, but if we were to go mono, we then have the ability to pan it kind of wherever we want. Now with this, we typically, we may not hear like a delay like that normally, so we could, in theory, send this tape slap into the room sound that the guitar is already going to if we wanted to. You can actually start to stack things. So instead of going into the room like we were, let's say we use this tape slap for just that guitar. Instead of sending it to the submaster, we're going to send it into the room. Now we've got this. So that tape slap is actually now hitting the room. So we can crank it up a little bit more. So you hear the tape slap is in the room reverb. So there's some fun things you can do like that and really mess with things to kind of get a specific sound that you're after. For now, I'm going to set this back to normal. And we'll just kind of put it in the room. All right, so here's all of our electric instruments together besides the bass. So this is the electric guitar, the pedal steel, and the guitar solo. There, in a nice little room, ready to go. All right, for fun, let's go look at our pipes, because why not? So let me grab the beginning here, see what we got going on. Boring, no one hears pipes like that. Let's put it in, actually, you know what, let's try the ambient. Let's go for it. So you hear that, like when I stop, you hear the space kind of grow. I go pre. And granted, I'm adding a lot of volume there, but we can always adjust that down. Let's get our other pipes. Again, really dry. Let's add the ambience to it. Kind of hear just that little slap kind of thing going on. So we put them together. Has a space. I'll take the space away. So like that. We're adding space, right? We never hear things dry, we hear them in a space. So let's put them in a space. Okay, so far we've done everything but the vocals, and we've used the ambience, we've used the room, we used the hall, and we used the plate. So we've used all of those so far. So let me just grab actually, you know what, let's just go for the vocal. All right, so vocal, we can still use any of these if we want. We can create new ones. Let's say we want a very specific reverb for the vocal. We can kind of do whatever we want. We haven't used the delays yet. I really do like delays. For this song though, it doesn't feel like it needs a lot, but I am gonna mess with this slap a little bit, but I wanna get it to be a lot more, more like a, where I'm looking for, like a rockabilly kind of slap where it's like this quick echo where it's like a da-da, just real quick. So let's throw the tape slap on there. And let's mess around with this real quick. And I gotta go find.
They found John and Lee on a logging road.
Lots of delay, but let's shorten that up. Let's go like 110.
They found John and Lee on a logging road.
There, that's a slap, right? It's getting just a just that da-da kind of thing. Let's see what happens when we mess with the feedback a little bit.
They found John and Lee on a logging road.
It's real crazy.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. 100 accidents store sheriff told.
Like that, I just basically cranked up the record level and
they found John and Lee.
Got way louder.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. 100 accidents store sheriff told.
And granted, this is way over what we would typically use, but you're kind of getting the idea here of what we can kind of do. So let's see, I'll back this down about there. I kind of like that. Let's see, I'll back this down.
They found John and Lee on a logging road.
A little more.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. 100 accidents, a story sheriff told.
That's pretty good. So we'll kind of leave that there. That sounded good. Let's see what everything sounds like now with what we've got going on. So this is all the tracks, right? With all the effects. And real quick, I'm gonna move that down. Okay, here we go.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. 100 accidents, a story sheriff told. Said it was around a double-out buck, everybody knew.
Okay, I'll do it again, but I'm gonna take everything out.
They found John and Lee on a logging road. 100 accidents, a story sheriff told. Said it was around a double-out buck, everybody knew.
So definitely add some space, add some width, bigness. It just makes it kind of feel like, oh, look, we're in a space again. Like it sounds more natural. Vocal still needs a little bit more, so let's again, let's try something short. Let's go go that ambience. Why not? Let's try that. See what that sounds like.
They found Johnny Lee on a logging road. A hunting accident, the story sheriff told.
All right, see what it sounds like in the track.
They found Johnny Lee on a logging road. A hunting accident, the story sheriff told. Said it was around a double-out buck, everybody knew.
Okay. Let's go to a chorusy part and see what happens there. Which I think probably in here.
From the outside was a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. You cross them or give them any shit. You get a little Dixie Mafia hit. From the outside was a little Dixie Mafia hit. There's a mob out here in the sticks. You cross them or give them any shit. You get a little Dixie Mafia hit.
So there, now we have space for everything. Everything's starting to really come together in a room or in any kind of like ambient space that we've started to build. Just kind of fattens things up, makes things sound a little bit more natural, as if you were actually, at a show saying and watching them. It's kind of the idea. Now, granted, with recording, you get to be a little bit more playful. You can really start to design and create with all of these things, and really do some fun stuff. Something you can try and do is like messing with modulation with vocals. So let's go into here real quick. Let me just grab a small little part. Let's look at this.
It was a little Dixie Mafia hit.
If I change this quarter note delay real quick, and instead of being a delay, well, actually here we'll go like 40 milliseconds. I'm gonna unlink this. We'll go 0 on the other. I'm gonna do let's go like 1 with a 100% depth on this side, and we'll go like a 2, 100% depth. So I'm using the modulation part of this, and we're also delaying this. And then I'm gonna send this to that. Let's see what happens.
It was a little Dixie Mafia hit.
Kind of crazy that amount, but
It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. It was a little Dixie Mafia hit.
blend it in.
It was a little Dixie Mafia hit. 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 It was a little Dixie Mafia hit.
Just kind of adds like this extra, almost like he sang more. This gets done a lot in pop, not specifically this way, but the idea is that you have doubles, triples, quadruples of vocals that have been modulated, so they're not quite in pitch with like the lead vocal, and they're panned super wide, and that's what kind of gives you like that big pop vocal sound, is stuff like this. So modulation and delay, like just slightly tweaking back and forth, makes this kind of stuff happen. This is really... this is kind of the effect we get. It's called the Haas effect, when like you double something. So like say you record one acoustic guitar and then you record the same part, but it's just all those little variances in timing and strumming and tuning and everything, and you pan them hard. You get like this super wide sound. It's called the Haas effect. It's the same idea that we build this in the box with vocals, typically in pop and certain type of rock mixes. Again, for him, I probably wouldn't do it. Not really needed for a country song, but yeah, like if you guys go into the Google Drive and under some of like the extra stuff, I put in that Eric Racy mix called 5 Years. It's like 40 plus vocals wide, and most of them are double, triple, quadruple. They just multiples that have been tuned up or down slightly. That's what gives pop vocals, the sound of pop vocals, besides just auto-tune and all the other fun stuff we do. So yeah, again, this is really kind of down and dirty, time-based effect modulation stuff. You could even mess with like the guitar solo. Say like you played it, but maybe you want a little bit of like phaser flanger to kind of make it stick out. Sometimes we'll put chorus on bass guitar to make things pop out, because of that extra modulation kind of helps it stick out of the mix a little bit, depending on what you're trying to do. All kinds of stuff you can do with time-based effects. This is the sky's the limit kind of thing, where you can get lost in modulation and reverbs and delays and do all kinds of stuff, because it's never ending. And the fun thing about a lot of time-based effects is you can use them to create and to be creative on what you're trying to do, especially that getting into kind of like any ambient stuff or designing specific sounds using delays and reverbs and choruses and modulation of any kind helps create something that you may not have thought of in the beginning. You plug into a delay and you're like, ooh, I never thought about this kind of sound, and you start messing with it and get lost, and 3 hours later you're like, oh, I need to go eat dinner or something like that, So, all right. Yeah, if there are any questions at all about modulation or anything like that, again, always feel free to email us. We can answer anything that you might have. Next week is kind of the final. We're going to kind of go over mastering, the basics of mastering and what that entails, to kind of finish up a song, and then just kind of open air to questions. Again, if anybody has worked on this mix and you want to send it in, we want to listen to it and just kind of go over it, you're more than welcome to shoot us an email, let us know, and we'll listen to it next week as a group. Otherwise, if there are no questions or anything, I guess I will see you guys or talk to you guys next week. All right, stay safe. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the week, guys. Thank you so much.